Good evening and welcome into another edition of Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. I am Wags alongside Scott Tobin, here to bring you all of the news in sports going on today. And we're gonna wait on talking about the St. Louis Blues because it's not something we want to talk about right now. But we got plenty of other things to talk about before that. Scott, though, how are you doing? It's a beautiful day here in St. Louis, and hopefully more of that to come.
Yeah, nice sunny day. It was a little cool, but not bad. Tomorrow in the morning and early afternoon, it's supposed to be nice. They're saying it's going to get up to around 80, and then maybe we're going to have some pretty nasty thunderstorms late in the afternoon tomorrow evening, and then it's only supposed to be in the 50s again on Sunday. So we're in that March roller coaster weather in St. Louis right now, man.
It's unbelievable, and you know what? I'm one of those people that I love those early spring, early summer storms that are like a little bit more intense than you would expect. And as long as nobody gets hurt, no property damage or anything like that, I like those kind of storms. And I tell you what, that gets me a little bit giddy for tomorrow night.
I'm one of those people that, when they tell you when tornado sirens go off, you're supposed to take shelter. I go outside and try to look for it. And I'm like, where is it? I don't see it. Where's the funnel?
And, that's the thing, like being in St. Louis, being in Missouri, you and I have both experienced, the nasty storms and tornadoes and things like that. And I don't want to like jinx myself, but, I haven't seen anything like deadly in my time. The one time I did my close encounter with the tornado was when I was down in Cape. You were down in Sykeston at the time. I was in Cape. It was that tornado that went through right there and just north of Cape Girardeau. I was actually on my way home for the weekend to St. Louis, and I was on the highway. I was going up there. It was just nasty, nasty weather. I ended up pulling off to the side of the road because the rains got so bad. And, I sat there for about 5 to 7 minutes. It let up, and then I drove on, went home, got home and realized that the tornado had crossed through. And didn't realize that I was only about like 7 miles away from where that thing went through. And that kind of put a little bit of like, whoa, in me.
Yeah, that was a nasty storm. I know which one you're talking about. And that was the one that hopped right across 55 there that day and did a bunch of damage. And unfortunately, a couple people lost their lives in that storm. So they can be scary. I remember I was a little kid, and I was at my grandparents' house. They lived in DeSoto. And I was outside playing ball. I was just hitting the ball around, and my grandma came out on the porch, and she said, "You need to come inside." And I was like, "Why?" I'm like 6 or 7. It was like 6 o'clock at night. I'm like, "Why?" She's like, "You see that big plume of smoke over there?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "That's not smoke." And I had no idea what a tornado was. Like I said, I was like 5 or 6. But yeah, there was definitely one in town, and it did a bunch of damage. But yeah, that was the closest I've ever been. See that smoke? Yeah, I see smoke. Yeah, no, not smoke.
Well, at least she didn't like try to frighten you and go, "Oh yeah, that's this and that." And at least it was like, "Hey, that's not smoke. Come inside. It's all good. It's all good." Yeah. Well, speaking of whirlwinds, the NFL has been kind of putting that out there the last like week or so. I mean, we had the opening of free agency and just a bunch of signings. Some more signings went down today. We'll talk about those in just a little bit. But now we're getting into the trade time of year for the NFL because the NFL draft is approaching. And there's a lot of question marks going around as to who's doing what, who's moving where. Right now, you've got the Jaguars at the number 1 pick, very likely going to be picking Trevor Lawrence. The New York Jets are at the number 2 slot, looking at Zach Wilson out of BYU, who had an impressive pro day today. That throw he made, going against the grain, I think, 50, 60 yards. That was super impressive. But if the Jets don't take him, there's now a team at that number 3 spot that might be very, very intriguing as far as picking a quarterback. And that's because the San Francisco 49ers traded up with the Miami Dolphins to that number 3 spot. They sent the number 12 pick, a couple of other picks, including first-round picks in 2022 and 2023 to Miami to move up to that number 3 spot. And then the Dolphins ended up trading that number 12 pick a little bit later. We'll get to that in just a second, but I want to talk about the first part of this deal, which was the 49ers moving up to 3. What does that signify to you that the 49ers are doing? Are they going to draft a quarterback? Are they going to go wide receiver? Is Jimmy Garoppolo going to be around anymore this year?
I mean, for you to give up that much, you have to think, because they gave up a lot to move up to that 3's pick. You have to think they're going to take a quarterback, which really surprises me, honestly. I didn't see San Francisco being a team to make that kind of a move. And you better be pretty damn sure that whichever one of those quarterbacks you like, you better be pretty sure that they're the face of your franchise for the next 10 or 12 years, because like you just said, you gave up first round picks the next 2 years. Those are huge picks, and so you better make sure that you know what you're doing here and you don't have a bust like teams like Chicago have done when they moved up in the last couple of years to draft a quarterback early and kind of mortgage their future.
Are you saying Mitchell Trubisky was a bust?
In Chicago, I still think he's going to be a good quarterback in this league, but his years in Chicago didn't exactly do him any justice.
No, they definitely did not. And I am also one of those in that camp that thinks Trubisky, given the right situation and the right team around him, could be a very, very good quarterback as well. And like you said, they traded the number 12 pick this year, a first and a third in 2022, and then a first in 2023 to the Dolphins. And at that point, everybody's like, okay, Miami moved down to 12. That's where they're going to go. They're trying to accumulate picks. Nothing else is going to go down. Well, just, I would say maybe about even an hour later, the Dolphins ended up trading with the Eagles, sending the number 12 pick, the number 123 pick, and a 2022 first-round pick to the Eagles for the number 6 pick and number 156 in this year's upcoming draft. It does give the Eagles a little bit more picks over the next couple of years, and the Dolphins also have more picks over the next couple of years as well. A lot of people are saying that Miami's looking at it and they're trying to build around Tua, but I look at it and go, let's see, they're building draft capital. They've got a young quarterback that could make sense in a place like, Houston. Is Miami setting themselves up to take on Deshaun Watson, or are the allegations around him really kind of making that trade off limits, and Miami truly is looking to build around Tua?
That's a really interesting question. I think the fact that they traded down makes me think that they're building around Tua, because if they were going to trade Deshaun Watson, Houston's going to be way more interested in that number 3 pick than they are the 6 pick, just because they can have Tua and then still be able to go get one of those top quarterbacks with 3, whereas 6, you're not sure one of those top 2 or 3 guys are going to be there. So I think they are building around Tua. It's going to be really interesting. I was looking today. Miami's got 17 picks in the first 3 rounds over the next 3 years in the draft. So, I mean, they can build an unbelievable team around him. It's interesting. I think it's more interesting what Philadelphia is doing, because everybody thought for sure Philly was going to take that pick and draft a wide receiver or the tight end out of Notre Dame, one of those big receiving weapons. And now probably all of those guys are going to be gone. So while Philly did pick up a couple of draft picks in later rounds, they moved down, and now I'm not really sure what their game plan is.
It's confounding to say the least, because it seems like over the last 2 years, the Eagles have they just have been an enigma, a mystery, not even really sure what they're doing. And right now, I'm just looking through some of these mock drafts that have come out since the trade, and you're looking at Philadelphia and most of them picking Patrick Surtain II, the cornerback out of Alabama. So maybe they're looking at trying to shore up the defense and going with what they've got. I don't know. And kind of going back to San Francisco, we talk about the fact that, they're probably going to be looking at a quarterback. Obviously, we know Trevor Lawrence is going number 1 overall to Jacksonville. That seems to be not in doubt at all. If the Jets don't swing a trade for that second round pick, the second pick, do they go after Zach Wilson? If that's the case, are the 49ers going to be okay with a guy like Justin Fields or Trey Lance? Or are they really betting big that the Jets are going to pass on Zach Wilson so they can get him? Because I feel like Zach Wilson is a guy that fits their mold perfectly, and it's the guy they really, really want. But if you trade up to 3 and you're still scared of the Jets picking him, do they even bypass the quarterback and maybe go after a wide receiver at 3? And if that's the case, why give up that much for a wide receiver?
I'm going to throw a curveball at you. We talked about Miami doing this. Another place that we've heard rumors that they're interested and he's interested. How do we know that San Francisco didn't move up with that 3rd pick? Because they have a bunch of draft capital this year. How do we know they didn't move up to that 3rd pick and they don't put a package together and go after Deshaun Watson in Houston?
Wow, that would be absolutely insane. First off, I would not like it because I've always hated the 49ers. That's because of the rivalry they have with the Rams.
Right.
I just know that my feeling is this. And once again, with the whole thing that's going on with Deshaun Watson, as far as the sexual allegations, sexual abuse allegations and things like that, sexual assault, the 49ers, and I'm trying to put this as delicately as possible because I'm not trying to speak for the organization. I'm not trying to speak for certain people, but there was interesting arrangements that went down with Colin Kaepernick. And if they wanted to get out from underneath the Colin Kaepernick situation, why would they bring in Deshaun Watson if he's under these sorts of situations? And once again, this is not trying to play any cards or anything like that, but I see a lot of people looking at that and saying, well, why would we want to bring in a guy with baggage when the other guy that we had that we didn't want here had baggage as well?
I mean, they're a little bit different for one thing, just in talent-wise. I mean, you can't really compare Colin Kaepernick and Deshaun Watson as far as talent-wise. So, I mean, I can see where they can say, okay, this is just a talent that we can't pass up, and you can make that excuse and hope that fans and everybody else would accept it. The other thing, and again, I like you and don't want to get too political or offend anybody here, but you could do that and try to appease some of the Black Lives Matter people, some of those people that were upset over Colin Kaepernick not playing, and say, okay, we're going to bring in Deshaun Watson and we're throwing all our support behind him, and we believe in him, and we're 100% behind him, and we believe in his innocence. I mean, there's one way they could do that, although, like you said, you're still going to offend some people because then you may have the women's rights groups and some of those people upset with you. So it's a sticky situation no matter what you do, but I could see that being a possibility.
That would be interesting because, the Rams kind of retooled by bringing in Matthew Stafford. The Seahawks still have Russell Wilson at this point in time. Now, obviously, that is still ripe to change potentially. And then you got Arizona that has Kyler Murray. San Francisco does feel like they need to, I would think, do something at the quarterback position because Jimmy Garoppolo just, for some reason, is just not fitting in San Francisco. Not because he's playing poorly. I mean, he has dealt with injuries, but he's just not fitting in the San Francisco mold. And I just feel like the 49ers feel like they may just be behind the other 3 teams in their division, especially with Deshaun Jackson now going to the Rams, giving Stafford a weapon as well. It feels like the 49ers are poised to make some sort of move, and bringing in a guy like Watson would be just a blockbuster.
Yeah, no, it absolutely would. It would get that fan base fired up. I think Jimmy Garoppolo has kind of gotten a bad rap in San Francisco because when he's been healthy, he's been good. He's won most of his games when he's been healthy. It's just the fact that he cannot seem to stay healthy, which is a shame because he's been productive. He was productive in New England as well before he got traded from there. So I still think there's a decent quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo, but it may be time again for him to move on.
Very, very true. A couple of other signings that went down today. Sammy Watkins is joining the Baltimore Ravens. It's a 1-year deal for $6 million with 5 of that guaranteed. The good thing about this is for Lamar Jackson, He gets a guy that has over 4,600 yards receiving in his career. That is more than double the entire Ravens wide receiver core combined. So Lamar Jackson, very, very happy with the signing of Sammy Watkins. And the guy that just seems to be the smartest man in the NFL, Chase Daniel, has signed a one-year deal with the Los Angeles Chargers to be Justin Herbert's mentor and kind of clipboard holder. This guy has made a living on not playing football, and yet he's a multimillionaire.
Yeah, but he like you said, he's a very smart guy. He's gone to places and kind of been mentors, and that's really good news for Justin Herbert, because there's no question that Chase Daniel is a very intelligent, very good guy to have in his ear to kind of be that mentor there in San Diego. And we saw how good Justin Herbert was last year. You bring in that veteran guy that can kind of show him the ropes and kind of lead him even more, and the sky's kind of the limit for that kid.
That it is. All right, that's the rundown in the NFL. When we come back here on Crunch Time, we're going to dive into the NCAA college basketball scene. Not necessarily the Sweet 16, but some coaching moves have been made here in the last day or so, and one got me very, very interested as to why. So we'll come back here on ASTV Productions for that on Crunch Time. And we're back here on Crunch Time on ASTV Productions. I am Wags alongside Scott Tobin. Let's get into the NCAA real quick. You got the Sweet 16 kicking off tomorrow. But before that, there was some news in the coaching realm. Shaka Smart is leaving Texas for Marquette. And I'll be perfectly honest. First off, completely forgot Shaka Smart was even coaching. Forgot he was down in Texas. And didn't even realize he was a guy that was still a hot commodity, because out of VCU, he was like the next guy, and Texas was thinking they were getting the guy that was going to lead them back to prominence when it came to college basketball, maybe even win them a national championship. Never really seemed to happen. He was with Texas for 6 years. They had 3 NCAA tournament appearances, but they had 0 wins. They were a 3 seed this year after winning the Big 12 tournament and got upset by Abilene Christian. And yet now he is a guy that Marquette is looking at to kind of build on their program after Steve Wojciechowski was fired after 7 seasons. Scott, I just want to get your thoughts on the whole machination of Shaka Smart leaving Texas, where he was on the hot seat, going to Marquette, and why this is kind of a big deal.
I still think Shaka Smart is a good coach. I'm kind of like you, though. I had forgotten that he was in Texas. He went down there, like you said, big things were expected. I don't know what's happened to that Longhorns program. How many hot coaches have gone down there to try to revive that basketball and football program and failed over the last 5 or 6 years? It just seems like for whatever reason, Texas just can't turn it around and be that power that they were for so long in either one of those sports, which is really interesting. But I think just the demand and the expectations in Texas were probably Shaka was ready to get out of there. And I think he's still a really good recruiter. And, Marquette in the past has done a really good job of stealing some really good, talented kids and getting them to go there. I mean, Dwayne Wade went to Marquette.
Yep.
They've had a good list of pro players that have ended up coming through Marquette. So I think Shaka can go there and kind of revitalize his career, kind of build on that reputation that he had at VCU and get Marquette back to being one of those mid-major powers that can surprise people and jump up in the tournament. And I think it's a really good move for him and Marquette, honestly.
Well, and how about potentially bringing in a guy like D Wade, who is now, post NBA career, maybe bringing him in and using that name and that excitement to build on that as well. That would be the perfect combination, I think, right there. It'd be Smart and Wade to be part of that process. And you talk about how Texas has struggled. They got rid of Mac Brown, and he's over in North Carolina now and really rebuilding that football program to some pretty big prominence right now. Obviously, Trubisky was there, and they've had good seasons the last couple of years. Now, obviously not at the level that Texas was at when he was there, but they're getting there. So, I mean, do you look at that and go, man, Texas just has, I guess, tried to do too much and overstepped when they really had some good things there?
Yeah, and again, it's Texas. The Longhorn fans are not happy unless they're playing in a national championship game. And I mean, they really haven't been a power since Kevin Durant was at Texas. And how long ago has that been now?
Oh, gosh. I honestly don't even know.
10 years, 11 years, something like that, probably.
Something in that range, yeah. And then before that, when you're talking football, I mean, Vince Young, because even with Colt McCoy after that, it wasn't like they were phenomenal. They were good, but they haven't really had the excitement since Vince Young was there and Kevin Durant. So, yeah, it's been a good 10, 15 years since both of those programs were really at the height of prominence. And now you're looking at Texas and going, okay, who are they going to go after? Well, it looks like Texas Tech coach Chris Beard, Texas alum, is the main target for the Longhorns. And, you saw what he did at Texas Tech, that the Red Raiders are playing very good basketball. But is he a guy that can bring Texas back to prominence because he has the connection of being a graduate there? Or is it just another one of those potential misses?
Yeah, it's just hard to say. I think there's a little bit of a power struggle in that Texas athletic organization with the boosters and everything, and they want to spend money and they want to be big, and they just haven't gone about it the right way. So if you're Beard, I don't know. Like you said, he's built a good program at Texas Tech. I know he's an alum at Texas, but you've got a good thing going up the road at Texas Tech. I'm not sure you make that jump, honestly.
Yeah, it'd be a big heyday for sure. And the lure of being the graduate that comes back and brings your school back to prominence or what have you is definitely a draw. And it's not like Texas has been bad under Shaka Smart. They did win the Big 12 tournament this year. They were a high seed. They got bounced, but it's like you said, they expect a certain level of success, and when they don't get it, it's time to move on. And honestly, Smart probably would have been fired after last year if not for COVID and it kind of ending the season prematurely. They gave him another go. It would have been a $7 million buyout for him to be let go. So Texas is kind of looking at it and going, okay, look, he made his decision to move on. We don't have to pay the $7 million buyout. And now we can go out and get a guy that maybe could bring us back, and it's an alum and has connections and roots here. If they pay him enough, and I'll tell you what, Texas, they definitely will pay to bring a guy in like a Chris Beard. Let's jump over to the Sweet 16 now, because that is tipping off tomorrow, and this is so weird. Like, I know everything's kind of different with the way the tournament's been going on, but to have games on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it's just completely throwing me off. But tomorrow at 1:40, you've got Oregon State going up against Loyola Chicago. 4:15 tip-off of Villanova Baylor. 6:25 Oral Roberts in Arkansas, and 8:55 Syracuse in Houston. Those four matchups, which one intrigues you the most? I already know which one you're going to pick, but I just want to hear you say it.
I think it has to be. There's some really good games there, but I think the one that has to be it is the Oregon State Beavers and the Sister Jeans, because you have the two teams that aren't supposed to be there, and I think that's going to be a really, really good game.
We were talking about this with Joe in the chat, and I think he said to the effect that he could see Loyola Chicago in the Final Four, maybe even the national championship game. And I took the position of, no, that's just not going to happen. I know they've got an easier path. They would end up having, I believe, to play the winner of Syracuse-Houston if they were to win the game on Saturday. I just, for some reason, I can't see them or any of the other really higher seeds making it to the Final Four. I'm still thinking you're going to see, like the Gonzagas, the Michigans, the Florida States, the Alabamas, the Arkansas. Honestly, I think Alabama and Arkansas are the two teams that people really need to be very, very cautious about and could really sneak into that Final Four and make some noise. But, I mean, what do you think? Do you think Loyola Chicago actually has a shot to make the Final Four? Syracuse, Houston, they don't scare you, but it's still Houston's a 2 seed.
Right. I don't know that they can get to. I think they can get to the Elite Eight. Getting to the Final Four will be pushing it because I think they would have to beat either Arkansas. I have Arkansas in my Final Four. I think that's who they'd run into if they got to that Final Four spot. So I don't think they get. I don't think they get to the 4. I think they get to the Elite Eight, but I think they get knocked out in that Elite Eight round.
100% agreed. For some reason, it seems like the cream always rises to the top, no matter what year and how many upsets happen. You're always going to have those higher seeds making it to the Final Four. And, the SEC, we talked about this a little bit over the last couple of days, but the Big Ten was like the power conference this year. They had all the great records, all the supposed good teams, and they have, one team left in Michigan? And then you look at the SEC, and the SEC is not really looked at as a basketball conference right now. It's still a football conference. But the way that this conference plays, the competitiveness of the teams in it, and yes, the records may not look great, but they're battle-tested. They're hardened. They've played close games. They've won them. They've lost them. Arkansas and Alabama are not to be trifled with. And like I said, I think they got a shot. And like you said, you got Arkansas in your Final Four.
I do. Yep. My Final Four, I've still got 3 of my 4 left. Illinois, of course, got knocked out, but I've got Michigan, Arkansas, and holy crap, I just forgot who I had.
Gonzaga?
Yeah, that's it. Wow, I just pulled a Joe Hamilton. Sorry, Joe, if you're listening. Yeah. Gonzaga, Michigan, and Arkansas are who I have left.
Yeah, I don't. I have I believe I have Gonzaga and Michigan left. And does Michigan do they scare you at all because of what you've seen with the Big Ten not really playing up to standards per se? And they're going up against the Florida State team that is pretty good. And then they would play the winner of Alabama UCLA after that. Are you scared at all of Michigan, or do you think they actually have the goods?
I think they have the goods, although you have to be scared a little bit just because we've seen teams that we thought had the goods and not be there. I mean, I'm still shocked that Illinois lost. I said going into that game with Loyola, I thought that was going to be their toughest test until they got to the Elite Eight. But I thought Illinois would still win that game by a dozen probably. And so, yeah, I'm kind of the same way with Michigan. I think they'll beat Florida State, but it still scares me because we've seen these Big Ten teams just not show up in this tournament.
That we have. And I think the seeding has been kind of interesting as well, because I look at Oregon, and they're a team that could really mess with some people's brackets, and they're a 7 seed. And I think they kind of got, I wouldn't say gypped out of a higher seed, but they're definitely one of the more dangerous lower seeded teams out there. They've got a Pac-12 matchup against USC on Sunday. Which way do you see that going? And if Oregon wins, could they beat Gonzaga?
That would be a really good game. I almost think you have to go with UCLA just because they weren't supposed to be here. They were supposed to get knocked out by Michigan State in that play-in game, and they've just far exceeded anybody's expectations. And when you talk about conferences, I mean, who talked about Pac-12 basketball at all? Whoever loses that game that's going to be the first loss by a Pac-12 team in this tournament. They're undefeated at this point. So, I mean, I think any of those teams in the Pac-12 are still really scary at this point, just from the way the whole conference has played in this tournament.
All that, and people just don't get a chance to watch them because they are West Coast. They are late games. The Eastern Conference or the East Coast people don't know anything about a UCLA, USC, and Oregon. So that totally makes a ton of sense. And yeah, that's crazy that the Pac-12 is is the only league so far, except for the one and dones, that has not lost. That's just incredible right there. All right, we're going to take a quick break here on Crunch Time. I'm going to come back and talk a little bit about baseball. Another ambassador of St. Louis passed away on Thursday. We'll talk a little bit about that. And also, could the All-Star game be moving this year? We'll have that next on Crunch Time on ASTV Productions. And we're back here on Crunch Time on ASTV Productions. Wags and Scott with you. Moving to baseball, in St. Louis, we lost an ambassador to the city, an ambassador for Blues hockey, and Bobby Plager the other day. And I think that news really overshadowed the loss of another St. Louis ambassador. And that was one that was with the Cardinals organization. Smokey Joe Cunningham passed away on Thursday. He was a Cardinals first baseman, outfielder, minor and major league manager, was with the Cardinals when they won the World Series in '82. He was with the front office and was just an overall team ambassador. He's credited with building the Cardinals group and season ticket departments, creating a bunch of promotions and special event nights and everything with the Cardinals. He's a member of the Missouri and St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. Once again, it's another one. Bobby Plager was such a huge name, and to lose him was super tough. But losing a guy like Joe Cunningham is just as tough for the Cardinals organization as well. I know, Scott, you work with the Cardinals. I don't know if you got a chance to actually interact with a guy like Joe Cunningham, but you definitely have felt his reach with this team.
Yeah, didn't really interact with him since I worked for the ball club. I did get to meet him a long time ago. And you're right, he's been involved with the Cardinal organization in so many ways. In the front as a player, as an all-star, and then working in the front office in so many different positions. Like you said, he started a lot of the season ticket things. Those programs, he started a lot of the promotions. He was a big part of the promotions department for a long time. And then he started a lot of the outreach programs, like the Cardinals Kids stuff, where Alrabowski and Fredberg go out to schools and do that kind of stuff. Joe Cunningham created all of those programs, where the outreach programs to inner city kids, to other schools, to go teach about baseball and stuff like that, to reach out to those kids. He started all of that. So he's had a big reach in all aspects of the Cardinal organization in his life, and been a big part of it. He's I believe, if he's not in the Cardinal Hall of Fame, I know he's been on the ballot before, so he probably will be at some point.
Oh yeah, most definitely, and one of the honorees he'll be in 1 year for sure. Let's talk a little bit about how he broke into the league, because I don't think you could have had a better start to a career. In his big league debut against Cincinnati in 1954, he homered and drove in 5 runs. But it wasn't even that. It was the next day when he hit 2 home runs off of future Hall of Famer Warren Spahn and drove in 4 runs. I mean, that's a hell of a way to start a career.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. Not a whole lot of people that can say they had those kind of numbers off Warren Spahn ever in a game.
Very, very true. He did spend some time with the White Sox and the Washington Senators as well. I spent 2 years in the military during the Korean War before reaching the majors as well. So just another one of those guys that you look and go, totally on brand for St. Louis, totally on brand for a guy that you would want to be a role model for your team in your city. And it's hard because now St. Louis has lost 2 ambassadors and icons in the span of about 2 days. Just a tough day here in St. Louis.
It is. We kind of talked about it a little bit when Bobby Plager died. Not even in just these 2 this week, but then we go back the end of last year, losing Lou Brock and Bob Gibson, and it's been a rough year just all around the last 6-8 months for St. Louis sports icons that had such a huge reach and had such a huge impact in the St. Louis community and in the sports community in general.
Yeah, it has been absolutely tough, and hopefully we don't have any more of that here in the next, I don't know, year to 10 years. It would be wonderful. Let's jump over to some more Major League Baseball news, and it's another one of those things where you're trying not to get political, but it has political overtones written all over it. And Major League Baseball Players Association Chief Jimmy Clark has come out and said he's open to moving the All-Star Game this year after voting rule changes in Georgia were revealed. Those rule changes include restrictions on voting by mail and greater legislative control over how elections are run. It was pushed out there by the Republican-led government in Georgia. And a lot of people see it as a target to preventing minorities from voting. And that has sparked Major League Baseball to at least consider moving the All-Star Game from Georgia this year. And there's precedent for moving All-Star Games. Back in 2017, the NBA All-Star Game was moved from North Carolina after some stuff went down there as well. But do you see Major League Baseball moving the All-Star Game this year, or is it more just a gesture of saying, hey, look, we see what's going on down there. Maybe this can be an agent of change, but it's so hard to move it that we're just not going to.
I would hope that it would just be a gesture because, the only people that end up getting hurt if they move the All-Star Game are the fans in Atlanta because then, they've been planning on this for a couple of years now. The city's been working on it. Fans have been excited about it. And then to have it pulled for something like that isn't fair for the fan base because, for some people, an All-Star Game in your city is a once-in-a-lifetime event. So you're taking that away from – you're trying to build the game. If you pull that away and kids don't get to experience all of the festivities that go around the All-Star Game itself, because that's pretty much a week-long experience, and you have all these Hall of Famers coming in, and you get to interact with all these players, and there's camps for kids, and there's all these different things. So when you're trying to really reach out to kids and try to get more kids interested in the game, probably pulling an event like this that has been planned for a couple of years away isn't really good because you may alienate families and fans, and you may alienate some of those young kids that you're trying to get into the game of baseball.
And very true. And I got a chance to experience the All-Star Game when it came to St. Louis. I didn't get to go to the game or any of the home run derby or anything like that. But we went to Fan Fest. We got to go downtown and just kind of experience what it was like having a bunch of baseball fans in town, the media, and just all the hoopla around it. And yeah, to have that pulled from your city, it would be disheartening for sure. I understand maybe this year it might be a touch easier because COVID restrictions might still be in place, so the amount of people that could go might be limited. And I mean, there are ways that they could go about it without it being totally detrimental. But I hope they don't have to move it. Because I don't want the fans in Atlanta to lose that, and B, a little selfishly, we're trying to go down there, and I want to be able to plan a trip to Georgia and not have to go. Okay, wait, we're gonna go to Georgia first, but maybe we go to Cincinnati or maybe we go to San Francisco. Like, I want to know where we're going for the All-Star Game.
Right, and also too, with it being in Atlanta, there would probably be a pretty big tribute and memorial to Hank Aaron since he passed away at the end of the year last year. So you would hate for that to get moved and kind of disrupted in the All-Star festivities as well, because nobody deserves a tribute and to be honored more than Henry Aaron.
Oh, no doubt about that. All right, let's talk a little bit about fantasy baseball as we get closer because baseball season starts next week. I got a chance to participate in a fantasy baseball draft last night. I know you don't do fantasy, but I kind of want to get your thoughts on some of the guys that you could see having big fantasy years. We're talking average home runs, wins, ERA, strikeouts, that sort of thing. Who are some guys that you look at and go, okay, they should be guys you're targeting, but then maybe throw a couple of under the radar picks as well?
I mean, if you're really trying to target people hitter wise, you're going to go after. I mean, your first 2 or 3 picks should be Mike Trout and Bryce Harper and maybe the third baseman in St. Louis. What's that guy's name?
Nolan something or other.
Arenado, something like that. That guy, yeah, that might not be a bad pick. those would be guys you really want to go after. And pitcher-wise, you're going to go after the normal suspects, the Scherzers, those kind of guys. Chris Sale coming back would be a guy you want to go after. Maybe a guy you look at that would be somebody pitching-wise that would be under the radar would be a guy like Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty could be a really interesting fantasy guy if he has the year that everybody expects him to have in St. Louis. That would be a guy I would look at. Another guy pitching-wise that would be really interesting, I think, would be – I'm trying to think. Who would be good? A guy like I'm blanking now. Actually, David Price would be a sneaky guy too as a pitcher.
See, and one of the guys I drafted, he's out right now, but they're talking about a late April comeback, and he's coming off an Achilles injury, but he's had some amazing stats in the past: 2.86 ERA, a 1.16 WHIP, 171 to 55K to walk ratio through 214 major league frames. Mike Soroka with the Atlanta Braves. I think I got him kind of as a steal because he is on the injured list right now, but he could be a guy that sneaks in there and has a good year as well.
He could be. That would be an interesting one. The only thing that would worry me, you said Achilles injury, and you got to remember how long it took Adam Wainwright to bounce back from that. So that would be the only thing that would make me worry about a guy like Soroka. Although if he's healthy, you're right, he could definitely be a big winner for you.
Well, I'm lucky. I got Shane Bieber, Aaron Nola, Max Fried, Steven Strasburg, and Michael Pineda as well. So I got some options when it comes to that. And I'll say this: I took over a guy's team. This is a dynasty keeper league, and I ended up taking over this team for a guy. And it just so happened Nolan Arenado was already on his team, and he was one of the 5 guys I could keep. So I'm like, yeah, I'm good with that. I think I could deal with that.
Yeah, that's not a bad pick. Another guy that I think a lot of people are not looking at this year that I think if you're trying to find a position player that might have a monster year would be the other guy in St. Louis playing the other corner position, because I don't think a whole lot of people are talking about him, but I honestly think Paul Goldschmidt very well could be in the MVP running in the National League this year.
Guess who drafted him for his team too? This guy. Yeah, I'm the same way.
That's not bad.
I think Paul Goldschmidt will have a good year this year. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to that. Real quick, running down some of the scores in spring training today. You had the Rays, a 7-3 victory over the Red Sox. The Tigers, 5-2 over the Pirates. Indians, 5-4 over the Rockies. The Giants and Cubs, 5-5 tie. Ew, yuck. The White Sox, 7, Brewers, 5. The Reds, 7, Diamondbacks, 3. The Braves, 7-6 winner over the Twins. The Marlins, 9-0 over the Astros. Nationals, 7-3 over the Mets. The Orioles, 4-1 over the Yankees. The Blue Jays, 6-5 over the Phillies. And currently going on now out on the West Coast, you got the Rangers, a 7-1 lead over the Royals in the bottom of the 3rd. The A's, a 9-0 lead over the Dodgers, top of the 5th. And the Mariners, 3-1 over the Padres in the bottom of the 3rd. So some really, really good action going on down there as well. And I'll ask you this, Scott, before we go to our next break. Man, how excited are you about opening day?
I'm ready, man. I'm ready for opening day in Cincinnati on Thursday. And then I'm really, really excited for opening day at Busch Stadium in a week and a half. That's going to be a lot of fun to be back in that ballpark. I actually get to go to the ballpark on Tuesday. I have to go pick up uniform and stuff, and it's just going to be so nice to be back in that ballpark because it's been over a year since I've been inside there, so I can't wait.
And there's a smell there that, it makes you think of summer and just happiness. And yes, it's a little bit of the hot dogs, it's a little bit of the, the beer and things like that and the grass. But there's just something about Busch Stadium. You go down there and you just take that first big, and it's like, wow, I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice, man. And opening day in St. Louis is always special. This year, it's just gonna be super special since we haven't all been able to do that in a year and a half. It's gonna be a really nice thing to see fans in that ballpark, and I can't wait to hear that ovation when that Arenado guy, Nolan, whatever his name is, that third baseman, when he comes to gets out of his car and walks to home plate before the game, that ovation is going to be impressive. Even 14,000, and it's going to sound like 45 or 50.
Oh, no doubt about that. I think the Cardinals put out a list of how to pronounce Cardinal players' names as well today. So that's one of them that's on the list is Nolan Arenado. And so Matthew Liberatore is on there as well, or something along that. I didn't read it, so I don't know if that's how I pronounce it. No one knows how to pronounce it. It's like Petrangelo. And speaking of Petrangelo, coming up after the break, we're going to dive into the NHL. A trade went down today as we get closer and closer to the NHL trade deadline, and a couple of games as well. Some teams playing, some teams not. So we'll have that coming up next year on Crunch Time on ASTV Productions.
Theo here on ASTV. Check out my show Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 p.m. On the Ice. Me and my guests break down all of the hottest and latest topics surrounding the world of hockey.
And Theo is a regular guest here on Crunch Time as well, usually on Tuesday nights with Joe Hamilton, because I play hockey on Tuesday nights and I can't be here. So, it is what it is. But we're very thankful that Theo is able to join us and help Joe out. And make sure you check out his shows on ASTV as well. I got a lot of great insights into that as well. All right, speaking of hockey, first off, a trade went down today, and it has to deal with the Buffalo Sabres, who are an absolute dumpster fire. In fact, that actually, in my mind, puts dumpster fires to shame, because the Buffalo Sabres are absolutely horrific. They have six wins this year. They're on a 16-game losing streak right now. It is just abysmal up there, and it's done so much that it's even ruined a pretty decent guy's career. Eric Stahl has played for Buffalo this year. He's had 3 goals, 7 assists, and is a minus 20 on the year. Minus 20. This is a guy that played in Minnesota, was pretty damn good. He gets dealt to the Montreal Canadiens today for 2 draft picks, a 2021 3rd and 5th round pick going to the Sabres. And I'm pretty sure I saw when they announced that trade, you could see Eric Stahl in the background running away as fast as he possibly can.
He was clearing out his locker, jumping on a plane as fast as he could, probably.
Yeah, because Buffalo is just absolutely terrible. And it makes you sit there and go, man, can the Blues fleece them for Jack Eichel or something like that? And secondly, poor Carter Hutton, because Carter Hutton went there to start for a year and kind of back up and mentor their goaltender Linus Ullmark. And he has had a rough go of it. I believe he's actually injured right now. And so prayers up for Carter Hutton, former St. Louis Blue for sure.
Yeah, did you happen to see Jeremy Rutherford had a trade proposal for Jack Eichel the other day? Did you happen to catch that?
I did not. Do you remember what it was?
Jordan Kyrou, Scott Marinovich, and draft picks for the next 4 years.
Oh, I mean, we got such a great deal for Ryan O'Reilly, and his work ethic turned around. I don't think I'd do that. I don't think Eichel has the track record that a guy like Ryan O'Reilly had, that you could see him bouncing back. I mean, Eichel's a great player, don't get me wrong. I just don't know if I'd give that up for a guy like Eichel. I don't see it being the case.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that many draft picks, but it was a move Jeremy Rutherford said he thought he would make if he had that option. So a guy like that who's got the inside knowledge, I was kind of surprised that he said he would do it, but he did. So,
hey, you know what? The insiders have a little bit more knowledge than us sometimes, and yeah, I mean Rutherford is a good mind. So if he's considering it, yeah, I mean, if you can get a proven guy like Eichel for I'd still consider Kyrou a little unproven. Scott Marinovich is unproven, but man, the upside that kid has is something to behold. And giving away draft picks, I mean, even if you were guaranteed, if you were guaranteed to have a 40 goal scorer on your team for the next 5 years, probably would take that. But I don't know if you're guaranteed to get 40 out of Eichel here in St. Louis, because apparently the Blues just cannot seem to score goals anymore. I mean, they did get one tonight from Ryan O'Reilly, but to face the Anaheim Ducks and only get 1 goal after pumping 37 shots on Cam Talbot in Minnesota last night and not scoring a goal, I mean, I was looking for a little bit of a kick in the pants from the Blues the last couple of nights in reaction to the Plager death, and they kind of have. They've played well. In fact, I think they've actually dominated really the last 2 games. They've just been getting so snake bit when it comes to being able to score goals.
Yeah, and that's frustrating to have that many shots and not be able to score. And then, we talked about it before the show. You only give up 11 shots last night, and they get 2 goals. That's just got to be discouraging. And then to come out tonight at home and how emotional that had to be with the ceremonies before the game and everything, and then did not play real well tonight. I mean, not that they didn't play well tonight, but they still lost 4-1. It's frustrating. We've talked about it a bunch of times. I just don't really know what this team needs to really get them going, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to get going at this point this season.
I am starting to come around to that thinking and agree with that. They just, they had Tarasenko came back, and you're thinking, okay, there's some excitement there because they've been dealing with a lot of injuries, and I get it, injuries take their toll. But you get a guy like Tarasenko back, and he plays well right off the bat. You're thinking, okay, maybe that's going to do something. No. Then Jaden Schwartz and Tyler Bozak come back. You're like, okay, they're starting to get guys back from injury. Maybe that'll get them boosted up a little. No. And then, unfortunately, Bobby Plager passes away, and I could see the game last night being one of those moments where it's kind of a letdown. But they played well, and they could not score. And tonight is just an absolute emotional crusher. Kelly Chase's narration before the game, brought me to tears. I mean, I'm still like sitting here thinking about it and going, oh my gosh, that was incredible. But to come out there and not really even do much, it's kind of the MO of the Blues, though. I mean, you look at every time they have a special event night, raising the banner, retiring numbers for legendary players. Seems like they always kind of go out and lay an egg, and this was probably no exception, but it's starting to become a consistent thing for this team, and I'm just kind of like you. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know if it's not a coaching issue. It's not a management issue per se, but I don't think it's also a leadership issue. I don't know what it is. Is it the fact that they lost Pietrangelo, Bouwmeester, and Steen, 3 veteran leaders, that maybe the leadership in this locker room hasn't found its voice yet?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say because all we heard about was what a great leader Ryan O'Reilly was, and how even a couple of years ago they were talking about, well, maybe Ryan O'Reilly should be the captain instead of Petro, and that he was the leader. So I'm not sure it's that. I just don't know. This team is perplexing. We've talked about this now for the last couple of weeks. It's just I don't know what to make of it, honestly. I'm kind of at a loss for words, trying to understand what's going on.
I'm right there with you. And I'll say this. Petro was here, and he kind of built up his leadership team over the course of a few years, and I get it. So you have a Tarasenko on there, you have an Alex Steen, you have a Braden Shen that are part of Petro's group. So they all kind of knew where they fit in the hierarchy of who to talk, when to talk, how to talk. And now this is Ryan O'Reilly's first year as captain. And yes, you've got some holdovers. It may just be one of those things where they really are. They're trying to find their voice and figure out where they fit in the hierarchy of his leadership. And next year they may come out and just be gangbusters and go right off. And the other part of it is, this is just such an odd season too. It started late. It was a different off season. Training was very, very short. Yes, this team has been around and together for a little while, but the camaraderie that you build up through training camp and all that just really wasn't there. So I can see where maybe things are just a little bit off this year. And, they get some guys back in the next week or so. Robert Thomas just came back. Colton Parayko is skating, going through drills now. This team still can come together and make a run in the playoffs if they get in. And it still looks like they might have a pretty good chance of getting in, and I'll take my chances if they somehow make the playoffs.
Yeah, no, if they can find a way to get in, I agree with you. I think they can still make a run. It's just trying to get healthy and trying to get through these next few weeks and get people back and we've talked about it a million times. They really need Colton Parayko to come back healthy. He is starting to skate, although Chief said today he really can't give us any type of time frame as to when we will see him back on the ice in game action. So sounds like he's still a ways away from actually playing in a game, but the Blues desperately need him back and healthy.
That they do, but I'm like Berube, I don't want to rush him back because I don't want to re-aggravate a back injury because it is definitely not something to mess with. In other game action tonight, the Washington Capitals a 4-0 victory over the New Jersey Devils. Alex Ovechkin scored twice tonight. He is now 8 shy of Marcel Dionne's 5th ranking as far as career goal list. He's up to 723. I mean, I still don't think he breaks Gretzky's goal record, but he's going to put a hell of an effort together. And I am an unabashed Alex Ovechkin fan. I love him so much. I think he's an amazing player. I still don't know if I want to see him break Gretzky's goal record.
Right. I like Ovechkin, too. I don't want anybody to break Gretzky's goal record. I mean, he's the great one. I don't know. That's just one of those records I don't want to see broken.
Same with the DiMaggio 56-game hit streak and things like Cal Ripken's Iron Man streak, all those legendary ones, especially the ones that happened in our lifetime. Like I remember the Cal Ripken Iron Man thing. It was actually right in the midst of my arm surgery back in 5th grade. And I remember getting the Sports Illustrated magazine and reading all about his walk around Camden Yards and all that stuff. So yeah, anytime you can live those moments, and I think that's why it was so hard for me when Barry Bonds broke Mark McGuire's home run record. Even though in hindsight the steroid thing for both was there, blah 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 blah. We've talked about that so many times, but yeah, when you live those moments, it's something you don't want to see broken.
Right, and being St. Louisans, we didn't want to see McGuire's home run record get broken by anybody, and especially not Barry Bonds. Anybody else besides Barry Bonds would have been a little bit more tolerable, I think, too.
I agree. I agree on that one. In other action, Jets 1-0 lead over the Flames after the first period. The Coyotes a 1-0 lead over the Sharks. Scott, anything else before we get out of here tonight?
I think that's the gist of it, man. I think we've covered all the big stuff, and I guess now we just tell people they want to stay tuned next week. Well, for the radio show over the weekend as we start to break down Major League Baseball and give our predictions. And then on the podcast on Monday as we do the same thing, really dig in and start talking some baseball because we're less than a week away now from opening day.
That we are. The Cardinals open in Cincinnati next week on Thursday. It's the perfect time of year. We're going to have college basketball this weekend. We've got hockey still going on. You've got Major League Baseball getting ready to open up, and the NFL draft is on the way as well. This is literally the best time of year for a sports fan, and you can get all of the news on Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions, 9 o'clock nightly, our podcast on Mondays, our radio show on Sundays. Make sure you check it out and, friend us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, because when we get to 800 likes, we're going to give away some more cool stuff. And our friends that got their stuff after 700 are very happy with it. You can become the people that are happy with it when we reach 800, so make sure you like us on Facebook. For Scott, I am Wags. Have a great rest of your night, and we will see you tomorrow.